Alright guys, welcome back to another week of me aiming to get a payout. This was a pretty decent week. I did take some nice wins, but I was just struggling a lot with my mental this week, and you can really tell the effect that it had on me, especially throughout the week. I don't know, man, it's like I feel like I make good progress and I do learn a lot, but I also gotta aim to hold myself to a higher standard because some days I am like you just to crash out. Okay, today was honestly a pretty scary session. Price just kept on teasing me over and over again, but coming into the day, I was honestly pretty conflicted. We had a 4-hour fair value gap supporting price, and we had been pushing higher all week, so longs did make sense. But at the same time, we also inverted the new week opening gap, and price was respecting this hourly imbalance for the sells. So bias-wise, I didn't really have a clear direction, which meant that I did have to stay flexible for today. And dropping down lower price looked pretty bullish as we were holding with these confluences, and we had a wick sweep of the lows, but the way price was aggressively pushing into these imbalances did make me second guess this. My plan was pretty simple at this point. It was mainly if buying pressure held, then I would follow the trend, but I was also ready in case there was some selling pressure coming in. And as market opened, we did display slower, creating a inverse 50-minute imbalance. Honestly, that was enough for the short that I was lining up, but I did hesitate and the move just ran without me. It happens though, so I did just stay patient and wait for the next opportunity. And my actual trade came later when price manipulated the London lows, and this was a key area that I was watching pretty closely, and we started showing signs of a reversal after a 1-minute inverse formed with a retest, and I entered long targeting a 1-to-1 risk to reward. And price initially moved really well with a clean displacement higher. I did change my 1-to-1 risk to reward to targeting London highs, which was about a 0.9 risk to reward. It's not the cleanest risk to reward, but I wanted to be more realistic with my target, and because the point size for this trade was already pretty large. But as price kept pushing higher, I did add contracts and I trailed my stop, turning this into a risk-free trade. And I'll be honest, I did almost close early because we started accumulating near the target, and yes, looked like it might form a bearish SMT. But before I could second guess it too much, price did bounce cleanly and tap the target, so it was a nice clean win to lock in at the start of the week. And I'm really happy with today's trade, mainly because it came from patience. Sure, the earlier short could have worked, but that's just more data for future decisions. And even though price action wasn't the cleanest overall today, waiting for the right reaction did make the difference. So going forward, I just want to keep on trusting my process, staying patient, staying loyal, and waiting for setups that actually match my system and what I want to see from market. Alright, so coming into today, price did overall look to be pretty bullish, as we did have some nice confluences keeping price supported. But what I didn't like was this accumulation forming up here, and that usually shows that we don't have the power to continue pushing higher. So I wanted to see how price would develop from this level before committing to anything. And dropping down lower, the low time frame actually had some bearish confluences lining up for the accumulation idea, and that just added even more substance to that short idea that I was building. And there was definitely some potential for price to run lower and manipulate the liquidity below. But again, that all depends on how price continues to develop. So my main focus today was to keep maintaining my patience. And at market open, we actually failed to form a 15-minute break that I needed for a long entry. And since that confirmation never came, I avoided forcing the trade. Later though, price did displace lower and we formed a clean 5-minute breaker, and we did get a retest into that breaker. And from that retrace, we did get a 1-minute displacement lower, and that's what allowed me to get into the setup. And this was a pretty simple trade, just targeting 1-to-1, which lined up really nicely with the Asia lows, and everything just backed up the move today. The confluences, market sentiment, and the structure, because of that, price just immediately started dumping. And we did get a small retest, but the reaction showed weak buying pressure, so I just stayed in the trade. And I did think about topping up contracts there, but it would have pushed my risk past what I allow myself usually, so I just stuck to the plan. And price just kept on selling off. We swept the London lows, and eventually we tapped my target for another clean win for today. And honestly, today felt really clean. The read on accumulation played out well, and I'm happy that I waited for proper confirmation instead of forcing something early. I really do feel like the momentum is building right now, but I just got to keep myself grounded and not get too ahead of myself. I got to keep on focusing on just maintaining this good readability and focusing on just waiting for the confirmation before taking any moves. But yeah, that wraps up Tuesday's trade. So you'd think I'd keep the momentum going today, but yeah. Not quite. Coming into the charts, London session gave us a crazy extension from these, which pushed price well above Asia highs, and we had some strong confluences supporting the move along with a wick sweep of a low, so overall momentum was just pointing very bullish. And on the low time frame though, we did have some unfilled imbalances below, and since price had just expanded higher, I did want to stay patient because the narrative wasn't completely clear. So either price just pulls back to rebalance those imbalances, or we just continue running higher, and I just wanted to wait for some confirmation before committing to anything. And later on, price did pull back into a newly formed 1-minute imbalance while retest retesting a 15 and 5 minute fair value gap overlap. The reaction wasn't that strong, but I was watching for a clean shift higher to justify it long, and after a sweep lower we did get that shift, so I entered long targeting a quick 1-to-1, and honestly price just went straight against me. No hesitation, no like anything, it just dumped straight to my stop, so it was a really quick loss for today. And looking back, today just wasn't my best performance. Mentally I wasn't fully prepared coming into the session, and if I'm being honest, I probably just shouldn't have traded in that state to begin with. And I was also thinking about how my contract sizing does affect my risk management sometimes. Like the position sizing with micros makes it a bit awkward to stay close to my intended risk, so moving forward I'll probably just run to the closest level that fits my plan better instead of forcing awkward sizing. And at the end of the day though, losses are part of the game, and what matters more is making sure I do execute properly and come back in prepared next session. So yeah, not the best performance today, but we'll reset and come back cleaner tomorrow. But today, low-key one of the chillest days of the week, and coming to the day we did have a steady push higher throughout the day, which showed that we did have some bullish potential. We did have a work sweep on the 4-hour and some good confluences backing price up for the move too, as well as a previous day high as a target, and the low time frame was aligned pretty well with good confluences too, so I do want to wait to see how price reacts to these low time frame imbalances. If we do get a nice reaction and price proves that everything is aligned, then I'll take the setup without hesitation. I am a bit tired though, so if the setup doesn't present itself, I reckon I'll just avoid trading, as I don't want to make a rash decision like forcing a trade. And I was waiting quite a while for a setup today. Price did displace lower during market open for a clean retest, so all we really needed was just a 5-minute inverse to confirm the trend higher. And there were a few moments where price almost broke higher, but we always end up getting smacked down, and I waited up until macro where we did just break lower, so I did just walk away there for today. And I don't really got a problem with walking away at all. My read was a bit off today, not gonna lie, but it's all good. Didn't force a setup since there was no confirmation to back up that read that I had, and we'll just improve on our readability coming into the next session. So yeah, it's just a nice chilled Thursday for today. Alright guys, last day of the week, and the first thing I did notice was the lack of bearish power on the high time frame, as we were starting to stall out in the current moment, and we did have some nice imbalances above which could be used as a good target. Looking down lower, we did have some nice imbalances as well, which I did expect price to retest, as we did have a lack of buying pressure in the moment. So combining what I do know from before, I should expect a retest before waiting for the reaction and then seeing what price does from there. And overall the setup was really similar to yesterday's, with me wanting to wait for a 5-minute inverse to a value gap. Price didn't provide that yet again, bro, but we did just dump lower during market open and we swept out the London lows. It's all good though. I'll just keep waiting for a better opportunity, and the opportunity did come when we did have a nice reversal reaction after sweeping out the said London lows, and we did retest a 1-minute inverse fair value gap after we shifted higher, and we did get a nice form on the 5-minute, so that's what got me into the setup. And initially this trade ran pretty well. I was targeting pretty far at the high time frame balances, but then I opted for a 1-to-1 risk to reward, as I felt that that was more realistic, and we did pump nicely to sweep out the time liquidity, so I was overall really confident in the setup. But volume did die out after sweeping out the draws on liquidity, so I initially trailed my stop as a retest from there would be possible, but we did fail to form the 5-minute inverse fair value gap, so that's what caused me to move my stop loss to break even, and then I got stopped out for today. And for today's setup, it was pretty alright. I'm happy with the patience that I used to wait for the opportunity, and I will say perhaps I could have played the trade a bit better by placing my stops below the displacement candle, as that would have provided me that 1-to-1 risk to reward that I needed, which was also targeting the London and Asia highs instead of some random price target. And yeah, I think that this is something that I could definitely improve on, as I didn't need to have my stop loss all the way at the swing low, and if volume held for this trade like it did today, we wouldn't realistically retest even the low of the displacement candle, as that would have just showed the lack of bullish power, and that would have made the trade, you know, a dud. So yeah, I'm just gonna go back and reflect on the trades I took for this week so I can test this theory and I can come back even better next week. Alrighty guys, that's it for this week. So pretty good week all things considered, and I did learn new theory with my TP and stop loss placements that I do want to experiment with, so I am going to go back and reflect a bit more of some of my previous trades to see what I can do better. It's honestly pretty tough though, because it feels like you learn good lessons at the end of the week and you don't get the chance to put that theory to practice until next week. The weekend's a good reset period for me though, so I will use that time to the best of my ability. And yeah, we'll be back stronger next week to claim even more dubs and, you know, run the market up. And yeah, still on a good track for a payout, but I'm not going to rush things. I'm just going to keep on following the plan, and I know my edge will play out in the long run. The stats for me are currently a bit below average, so we're going to balance it out for sure, you know. And yeah guys, that's pretty much it for this week. Check out the Discord if you guys are interested. Everybody in this chill, we're all just there to learn, grow, you know, talk trading. So if you guys are keen, you guys join up in the link in the description. And yeah guys, thank you guys for your guys' support, and I'll see you guys next week. Peace.